can you tell us more about your project at Microsoft, which was the smart tagger system?
Okay, so at Microsoft, I was part of the R&D organization, and we worked on just new features that we wanted to push through older products just to keep things innovative. So something we were working on at the time was a tagging system, which I think makes a lot of sense since I had some past experience in tagging that I was put on this team. But we were building a plugin for Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, just the Office suite that enabled tagging. So tagging was a very, let me see if I can find it. Tagging was a very hidden feature. I think a lot of people didn't know that you could apply tags to a document, which isn't surprising because of how the interface is actually designed. You have to do either multiple clicks to get to the tagging section, and even when you do, inputting the tags is a bit cumbersome. It's just like a very small text box, and then when you keep typing, it just like hides certain text, and it's just like a bit clunky. And that has made the feature very hidden. So to do this, we wanted to bring tagging to the front panel while you were working. What was really fun about working in the R&D organization is that we got to actually think crazily out of the box. And I think that's not something we do a lot. It's like if you're trying to push a feature really quickly, you don't have time to think about new interactions that might be a little bit more revolutionary or a bit different, and because you just don't have the time, and also there may not be that technical support to actually build these out and to test it out. But here we, yeah, think about it, just like consider all these new options and consider how things can be done. So some parts I can show you. Some, I guess, like very classic low fidelity wireframes and thinking about how things can be done. So these are just possible options with, like, of course, a pop-up modal versus a side panel versus in the document actually typing the tags using, let's say, like you quickly type hashtag and then you write the tag and it's automatically applied. So these are just sort of the ideas we were just pitching at the beginning before actually coming up with something that we can deliver. So for this, I had the opportunity to work with a few different companies. So we worked with Forrester Researcher, which is based out in Boston, and then also LL Bean, which is based in Maine. And getting to do this was very, very interesting and definitely like an eye-opening experience. So with these customers, we held some user walkthroughs, some user surveys and interviews, and then just also shadowing them and seeing their workflow. So companies like Forrester Research, they have roles where all they do is to tag a document. They have an intern that I got to talk to, and her whole internship was getting a document, tagging it, getting a new document, and tagging it. And that was very interesting because I didn't think that tags were that important. But Forrester Researcher has hundreds and thousands of research documents that they store. They do research for other companies, but then they also leverage the research that they have done for other companies for their new projects. So being able to access the different files really quickly is very important to them. And to do that, they decided to use tags. But because of the very hidden tagging system, they decided to put the tags in the top header section of each document. And then they would use that as like their tagging system, which I'm still like maybe a little bit confused as to why that was chosen. But that's how they did things. And they found it very difficult to find things, of course, because you have to go into the document, then look at the tags and be like, okay, this document is exactly what I need, or it isn't what I need. And I have to go into another document, look at the tags and figure that out. So being able to talk to someone that actually is directly impacted by your product is quite fun and very eye-opening. So here we looked at different ways of how tags are used. So things like discovery, suggestions, search, people, groups, versioning. These are very different types of tags, but they were all grouped under tags. Right. So of course, if you tag something version 1.2, but you also tag something Courtney, because I'm the author, is sort of like very distinct entities, but people didn't care and they just tagged it as anything that could possibly relate to the document. So that was something to take into consideration. Additionally, this is very important. It's something I didn't really think about until probably near the end, but as a lot of big companies have it, it's an ecosystem of products. It's not just a single one. And as you're designing a feature, that may just be for Word because you're just doing a small R&D project in this one application. You have to see how it scales, how it grows, and how it will be applied in all these other products, and see how things will relate to each other. And at the end of it, see how you close the loop. So in this case, seeing how someone will actually like find that document and use it, put it into a different Office folder, share it with these groups of people, and then have, let's say, management turn it into a email broadcast. So this is like a big loop that you don't think of, but that's how people use the products, and that's how we should design for them. Another part that I think a lot of people try to either ignore or not want to deal with, but it's very necessary, and it is accessibility. Personally, when it comes to accessibility, I'm just like, okay, time to figure out the screen reader labels and how to actually interact with like tabbing and enters and all the hotkeys. And this is something that Microsoft is very strong about. They make sure every application and everything that they push out is accessible. So having this insight and being able to work within these guidelines is something I think everyone should at least try to use in every project.
Right.
I should still try to use them in every project, but it is very tough, and I get that. But I think if you just put that extra 1 or 2 days to think about it and to at the beginning of the project to really like work with it, it'll go a long way. So when we came to our final product that we actually launched, it was very simple where you would just add these tags. Within the 4 months, it was a bit slow getting code ready and pushed. So as a part of the design team, we created the explorations for the future as how things can grow. So something we looked at was these tag sets. This is a big part that we talked about previously, where it's like versioning versus content versus authors, related content, stuff like this, and being able to do things really quickly. So when we talked to people from finance at Forrester Research, they also use tags, but in a much different way. So they had their only finance specific tags that they would apply to almost every single document. So it would be very cumbersome if you had to go into every single document, type every single tag, or copy and paste every single tag into this interface. So being able to talk to them and being like, oh, you know what, if you're applying the same ones to every single document, why don't we just make it very easy for you to mass tag things and do things at a much faster speed. So this was that sort of exploration. The next one is types. What was fun here is that we got to think about typing interactions, which I think is very common in newer products such as like Slack. You type colon and then you get your options for your emojis. But a lot of older products don't have these interactions because it's hard to learn, especially for the older generations that are using the products. They're not used to these very shortcuts to doing things. So being able to teach them these patterns is a big part of the interface, and being able to guide them through and onboard them onto these shortcuts is something we should always strive for. So this is just quickly the first run experience, having to actually download and not download. Well, you have to download the plugin and then just onboard through it.
Right.
The general experience, how it would look, how it would feel, how it would work. And that's pretty much it. So a big part of ours was that we actually used, we would parse the text and then generate some recommendations. What was really interesting is that text parsing is not so great. You get a lot of weird tags that are not applicable and that shouldn't be recommended as tags. But having to work with this sort of tech stack and being able to say, okay, we have to use this because this is part of our technical constraints and what the technical team wants to use, and then
Right.
being able to actually showcase something that's meaningful. You get a bit of a disconnect there because as, let's say, content strategists and designers who are trying to recommend something meaningful, and you're not getting the output that you want from the technical team that are using this black box of text parsing, you get a little bit of some difficulty there.
Yeah.
But trying to meet in the middle and just trying to figure out what we can do to make the experience as best as possible is very important.
Makes sense.